Sam LaPorta had one of the best seasons by any rookie tight end in NFL history. So he ruined everything. That's right. He's going to ruin the way fantasy football players draft this coming season. We're going to tell you why. Sam LaPorta was the number one scoring tight end in fantasy football, 18th in the league in total reception. He was the only tight end to score double-digit touchdowns. So Chris, why is this a bad thing for fantasy?
Well, it's a bad thing because we've had this narrative not even a narrative, just kind of a fact for many, many years that tight ends tend to take time to develop in the NFL. And then when one comes along, like Sam LaPorta, who probably will end up being the outlier, now everybody's going to be thinking, okay, the next great rookie tight end or the next rookie tight end with all kinds of hype can be Sam LaPorta and can be a league-winning tight end. So, yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, there's outliers and everything. You don't want to get too caught up into what one guy did last year, even though he was really, really good.
And we might see that next guy you just talked about, that prospect. He's coming this year. It's Brock Bowers from Georgia. I mean, we've heard about this guy for years now. Obviously, one of the highest profile programs there is. And sure, he's deserved of the hype. I mean, he's got the production, of course. He's probably going to grade out pretty well in terms of combine and all that. So he's going to be a first-round pick. I'm almost sure of that. But does landing spot matter for a guy like this? And is this somebody who's going to be now overdrafted?
He might already be overdrafted. I feel like in my last underdog draft I did, he's going inside the top 50 players. I could be wrong on that. It was pretty crazy. But yes, landing spot definitely matters because let's be real. Let's say if Sam LaPorta had been drafted by the Raiders like Michael Mayer was, does Sam LaPorta have the season he had last year? I don't think so, right? Landing spot definitely matters. He's got to go to a team with a competent quarterback, a competent offense, but he's got the talent. He's got all the talent in the world, all the ability. So could he be a repeat of like what we saw with Sam LaPorta? Maybe if he lands in the right spot, but also, we got this guy, Kyle Pitts. He also was, this freak athlete, freak talent at tight end, and we saw how landing spot has hurt him so far.
That's a very good comparison. I mean, people were drafting Kyle Pitts crazy high. Look, he had a good rookie season. You can't really argue with that. But since then, not so much. And you can say, well, it's the quarterback, it's the offense, it's Arthur Smith. Yeah, but all of that matters. And you just made a great point. If LaPorta doesn't go to Detroit, if he goes to another situation, and Aiden O'Connell is his quarterback instead of Jared Goff, he's in a different system. Is he the tight end one? No, it definitely is going to matter. So I think we have to say, first of all, let's not get carried away because you would think that people would have learned their lesson and not forgotten about the Kyle Pitts experience. But a lot of people are still in on Kyle Pitts, and they're going to assume that what happened last year is what's going to happen next year. So let's talk about those second, third year, and maybe even one fourth year tight end who haven't broken out yet, didn't have amazing rookie seasons. Just because they weren't Sam LaPorta last year, does that mean we should be out on them? Or is it possible that tight ends still need a year or two to develop? Let's start with Kyle Pitts. It's like either you love him or you hate him. There is no in between, it seems like. But where do you, a very reasonable man, stand on Kyle Pitts right now?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is tough. I mean, I've been defending this guy for years because, again, the talent is there, but the situation has been horrible. I mean, who has he played with so far? He played with Matt Ryan when Matt Ryan was kind of at the end of his career, and he had 1,000 yards as a rookie, which is fantastic. But then he had to play with, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, who may have been the worst QB in the NFL at that time, and Desmond Ridder might have been the worst QB in the NFL last year. Taylor Heineke, he might have been the worst QB. I mean, he's played with horrendous quarterbacks, not to mention a head coach who's running jet sweeps with Jonnu Smith at the goal line. And, he was dealing with this knee injury. I hate, jumping back on the Kyle Pitts train. I mean, I get it. I'm sure anybody who's drafted Kyle Pitts or had Kyle Pitts on their fantasy teams, which I've had many teams with Kyle Pitts on them, I get it. If you're like, nope, I'm done. I don't care. I've seen enough. I'm done with this guy. But look, the Falcons could realistically get a guy like Justin Fields in a trade. They could draft one of these QBs. They could move up to get a QB. They could sign Kirk Cousins. We could finally see a real NFL, productive offense with real NFL QB play. And that might be all Kyle Pitts needs. So I'm probably falling for the Kyle Pitts trap one more time this year.
I don't know if there is or ever will be a buy low window on Kyle Pitts with the way dynasty owners value someone like him. But I would say this might be the last chance to possibly buy low if he's going to break out. I know there's a lot of ifs there and hypotheticals, but look, this really, really depends on the quarterback situation. Yeah, sure, we got Arthur Smith out of there. Great. But is this really going to be the most fantasy-friendly offense still? We got a defensive-minded head coach, and a lot of people are making fun of the fact that, at his first press conference, so what do you like about the offense? He named Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Didn't mention Kyle Pitts by name, but I don't think that was intentional, or I don't think it even means anything. So, yeah, I think they'll use Kyle Pitts, but it really depends who the quarterback is. If they get Kirk Cousins, like you said, or Justin Fields, I'm in on Pitts. If it's a rookie or kind of a journeyman type, like, God forbid, Ryan Tannehill or someone like that, I'm out. Now, what about one of the rookies from last year who didn't really have a great season, didn't really help you in fantasy, but was considered just as highly as guys like LaPorta? And I'm talking about Michael Mayer for the Raiders. Look, also a team with a new head coach, now permanent, probably will have a new quarterback next year. Do you think that year 2 he takes a leap forward?
Well, he's probably going to take a leap forward because he wasn't super productive last year. I mean, a leap forward doesn't really have to be a huge year, but for him to be fantasy relevant for a guy that you feel comfortable starting most weeks, I guess that would be a pretty big leap. I'm not sure. I like Michael Mayer. I think he's a talented player, but kind of like what you said with Kyle Pitts, it's really going to depend on who is the quarterback. And the other worrisome thing here is Antonio Pierce wants to run the football. He doesn't even hide the fact that he wants to run the football. He openly says, we want to run the football. We want our running backs to have 20 to 25 carries. And he does it, right? Whether it was Zamir White or Josh Jacobs, these guys were getting 20 plus carries. It was like old school, back in the 80s or 90s with Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and everything. So there's certainly some cause for concern here. But I like the talent, but like you said with Kyle Pitts, it's really going to depend on who ends up being the starting quarterback here for the Raiders.
Yeah, the funny thing is with the Raiders, I feel like it almost matters more not just who the quarterback's going to be, but who the running back's going to be. If Josh Jacobs is back, we're going to see the same thing. It's going to be a little bit more conservative of an offense, and they already happen to have a receiver who is a target hog in Devontae Adams. So there's only so much room. I think Mayer is a nice kind of low end, tight end sleeper if you really wait on tight end, but I don't feel like the upside is there just yet. Now there is a guy who's entering year 3, also on a team that's going to have a coaching change and maybe not a quarterback change, but there's some promise in this offense in Tennessee. I know you like Chig Okonkwo, but how much do you like him?
I like him a lot because nobody is on Chig Okonkwo right now. It's not that I think Chig Okonkwo is going to be the tight end 1 this year. He's going to have some amazing season. But again, we're talking about tight end here. If Chig Okonkwo is even good this year, he's probably going to be a top 10 fantasy tight end because that's basically the requirement for being a top 10 fantasy tight end is stay healthy and be good. You don't have to be elite, just be good. But there's a chance he could be elite because he is an elite athlete. He's a good pass-catching tight end. Will Levis going into year 2, I'm sure they're going to stick with him. He was actually pretty good in the games of Will Levis last year, much better than in the games of Ryan Tannehill. And the new head coach, the OC from Cincinnati, Brian Callahan, is going to transform this offense. It's not going to be, Derrick Henry, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, run the ball and run the ball some more. They're going to open it up. They're going to throw. And look, there's not a lot of competition here. Sure, there was a time when DeAndre Hopkins was an alpha wide receiver, a target hog, but those days are gone. Treylon Burks isn't a target hog. I could see Chig Okonkwo being one of the leading receivers on this Titans team, and if that's the case, he's going to be more than fantasy relevant, and he's basically being undrafted in every draft I do outside of maybe tight end premium dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I'm in on Okonkwo as well, and I'll tell you, I don't think they're going to be maybe the most dynamic offense in the league, but I think the Titans offense will be one of the most pleasant surprises. I do think there's a lot of potential here. I actually am surprised myself at how much I kind of grown to like Will Levis after seeing him play. He just needed, a chance to get out there. And even in that offense last year, and with Derrick Henry still in the backfield and not a whole lot to throw to, I like that he looked very composed. He didn't make a lot of mistakes. I think there's a lot of untapped potential here, and that includes with Chig. So he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And then let's talk about somebody also entering year 3 who came on late and made some noise in the playoffs. Cade Otton seems like he's still flying under the radar. Is he going to take it to the next level, especially if Mike Evans is no longer in Tampa?
Yeah, that's the big if here. So unlike these other guys where it's like, well, who is our quarterback going to be? It's, well, is Mike Evans going to be there or not? Now, we know they didn't come to terms, on an agreement here. Mike Evans probably going to hit free agency. But you got to think it's probably going to be a priority for both sides to come back. Like, does Mike Evans really want to go play somewhere else? Do the Bucs really want to let Mike Evans walk? I mean, maybe if he's just asking for too much money, or maybe if he wants to go to Kansas City and try to win a Super Bowl. I guess we'll find out what's most important to Mike Evans. But if he's gone, sure, there's a path for Cade Otton. But we saw last year, even in times where we thought like, hey, he's kind of getting involved and now he has this great matchup. I remember you and I both, there were many weeks where it's like, hey, Cade Otton, he's getting some targets. He's out there every snap running wind sprints. And now he gets this great tight end matchup and then he gets like no targets. He does nothing because Baker Mayfield's just throwing it to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's still there. So yeah, it really comes down to me what happens with Mike Evans. If Mike Evans moves on in free agency and they don't do anything significant at wide receiver, then yeah, I'll definitely be on Cade Otton. But right now, I'm thinking Mike Evans will be back, and I'm kind of still avoiding Cade Otton.
Yeah, he did disappoint in a couple of very specific matchups. I know exactly what weeks you're talking about, where it's like smash spot, and he didn't smash. But I'm still in on him for the most part, even if Evans returns, because we saw he really came on late in the season. It's like Baker Mayfield finally realized there were other guys out there besides Evans, and he targeted him where it mattered the most, in the end zone. Like, he has that touchdown upside, and like you said, there's no other tight end really taking snaps away from him. He's a guy who can be an effective receiver and a blocker, and so I like that. He's just out there, and this is a team that doesn't really mix and match a lot of pieces. They kind of stick with what they got, and so Otton is someone I'm definitely going to be high on regardless. Look, any of those young tight ends could be great sleeper picks for next year. But you want to know our top 10 must-have sleepers at all positions? Check this out.